She missed the royal ball to save a dying man, unaware he was the alpha of the largest pack. The kingdom of Velthoria shimmered under the light of 1,000 lanterns, each swaying gently in the evening breeze. Tonight was the royal ball, the night every noble of the land had waited for, a night of silk gowns, polished shoes, and whispered secrets that could change fortunes. Lady Isolde stood in her chambers, gazing out at the moonlit gardens. Her gown was a soft shade of silver, embroidered with tiny threads that caught the candlelight like drops of frozen starlight. Yet despite the elegance surrounding her, her heart beat with unease. "Isolde," her maid whispered, adjusting the folds of her gown. "The carriage waits. You must not be late, the king himself will be watching." Isolde gave a small, polite smile. "Thank you, Mara, I'll be ready shortly." But her eyes were fixed on the forest that bordered the palace grounds. There, shadows moved oddly among the trees, as if something alive and troubled hid just beyond sight. Her fingers itched to reach for her cloak. Something tugged at her, a voice she could not hear but could feel deep in her chest. It was the kind of instinct she had learned to trust, and in that instant she made a choice that would alter her life forever. She slipped out of the palace, unnoticed, and ran toward the forest. The cobblestones gave way to damp earth, the air thick with the scent of moss and pine. The moon cast silver patterns through the trees, lighting her path as she hurried deeper into the woods. Then she saw him. A man lay sprawled on the ground, half hidden in the roots of an ancient oak. His clothes were torn, and blood stained the pale skin of his arm. A low, ragged breath escaped his lips as his golden eyes fluttered open, sharp and wild even in pain. He was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a storm waiting to break. "Please help me," he whispered, his voice rough yet commanding. Isolde dropped to her knees, her hands trembling as she pressed a hand to his wound. "You're hurt badly. Stay with me. I'll help you." The forest seemed to quiet around them, as though it sensed her presence. Even the wind held its breath. She worked quickly, binding the wound with strips torn from her cloak, murmuring prayers and encouragements. The man's chest rose and fell unevenly, but slowly he began to stabilize. Finally, he opened his eyes fully and fixed them on her. Golden light shimmered in their depths, but beneath it lay a fierceness that made her pulse quicken. "You saved me," he said, a note of awe in his voice. "Not many would risk everything." "I couldn't leave you here," Isolde replied softly. "You needed help." He studied her for a long moment, and she felt a strange heat in the forest air. She did not know him, yet the way he looked at her made her feel like she had known him all her life. "I am Kaelin," he said finally, his voice low and unyielding. "Alpha of the pack." Isolde blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Alpha." He nodded, the muscles in his jaw tensing. "The largest pack in these lands. I should not be alive." She swallowed hard. Even in the pale moonlight, she could see the raw power radiating from him. It was a force that belonged to legends, the kind of strength that could bend men and wolves alike. And yet, he was hurt, vulnerable, human in ways no one in Velthoria would suspect. Hours passed as she cared for him, the night stretching thin and quiet around them. They spoke little, but when they did, it was in fragments, snippets of who they were, who they had been. She learned that he had been ambushed while traveling through the northern woods, attacked by rogue creatures that moved like shadows. Kaelin did not speak of why he was so feared, but she could feel it in the very air. He was more than just a man. As dawn approached, the first streaks of pink light touched the forest. Isolde realized she had missed the royal ball. The thought should have made her anxious, her family's disappointment, the whispers that would surely follow, but she felt no regret. Not for saving a life. Not for this man, mysterious and wild. Kaelin stirred, finally able to rise with her help. His presence was magnetic, almost overwhelming. He looked down at her, expression unreadable. "You risked a great deal tonight," he said. "I could not do otherwise," she whispered. He studied her in silence. Then, without warning, he pressed a small token into her hand, a claw-marked pendant, black as midnight, faintly glowing with an otherworldly light. "Remember this," he said. "You owe me a debt and I will find a way to repay it." Before she could ask him what he meant, Kalen stepped into the shadows of the forest and disappeared. The wind carried away the sound of his voice, leaving her alone with the token and the pounding of her heart. By the time she returned to the palace, the grand hall was emptying. Nobles whispered about her absence, some judging, some curious. The king's stern gaze met hers briefly, but Isolde barely noticed. Her mind was still in the forest, still with Kalen. Days passed, and she tried to return to normal life, but the world felt thinner somehow, as if part of it had shifted in the moonlight of that night. Then came the first sign that her choice had not gone unnoticed. A royal envoy arrived at her family's estate, bearing news. The northern forest, the very place she had ventured, had been marked by Kalen's pack. Carvings in the trees bore the symbol of the alpha she had saved. Whispers of the mysterious man spread through the kingdom. Some called him a legend, others a monster. Yet every story led back to her. That evening she stood on her balcony, clutching the claw-marked token. The wind carried a strange, wild scent, pine, earth, and something darker, something alive. She knew he was near. She could feel it in her bones. And in that moment the world of silk and gold she had once cherished felt impossibly small. Her heart beat faster at the thought of him. The man she had saved, the alpha she had never known, was out there, and he knew her name. At the far edge of the forest, Kalen watched from the shadows. His amber eyes burned with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. This girl, this human, had saved his life without fear, without hesitation. In all his years as Alpha, commanding loyalty, power, and fear, he had never met anyone like her. And now he thought she would not escape him so easily. The forest seemed to hum with tension as he turned, disappearing among the trees once more. But he left a trace, a promise and a warning that their fates were now entwined. And far above, the palace bells tolled the morning hour, signaling a world still unaware of the storm that had begun to stir in its forests and hearts. Days passed since Isolde had ventured into the forest and saved the wounded man, Kalen, the alpha of the largest pack in Velthoria. Though she tried to focus on her duties at the palace, every sound, every rustle of leaves outside the gardens made her pulse quicken. The claw-marked token he had left burned softly in her palm, a constant reminder that the wild world she had glimpsed was very real and very near. The tranquility of the palace was shattered one evening when a rider arrived without warning. His horse panted, steam rising from its nostrils, and the rider's cloak bore the sigil of Kalen's pack. Whispers filled the corridors. The alpha of the northern forest was here, in Velthoria. Isolde felt her stomach twist. She had expected him in some distant way, but not like this, not walking through the palace gates like a storm in human form. The next morning, Kalen appeared in the gardens, where the dew still clung to flowers and the first light of dawn turned the fountains into silver mirrors. He was taller than she remembered, his presence commanding even among the palace guards. His amber eyes searched for her, unwavering. "Lady Isolde," he said, voice low and measured, carrying authority that made the air around him vibrate. "You saved my life. I have come to understand what debt is owed and what must be done to repay it." Isolde took a cautious step back. "I do not owe you anything," she said softly, though her pulse betrayed her words. Kalen's gaze softened just slightly. "Perhaps not, but the forest has marked you. The pack will know your name, your face. The choices you made, they are not forgotten." She swallowed hard. Every fiber of her being told her to be cautious. He was dangerous, a man whose power rivaled the ancient forces of the land itself. And yet she could not stop the pull she felt toward him, the same pull that had led her into the forest that night. "Why are you here?" she asked, trying to steady her voice. "I am here because my pack is in danger," Kalen replied. He walked slowly along the garden paths, each step deliberate, making the leaves rustle beneath his boots. A curse spreads through the lineage of the northern packs. It grows stronger each day, and if it is not stopped, many will die. I cannot do this alone. Isolde's heart clenched. The forest she had glimpsed was not just a wild place. It was alive, dangerous, and powerful. And now that danger reached into the kingdom itself. "What do you need from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kalen paused, his eyes locking onto hers. "You have a heart that does not falter, courage that is rare. I need you to come with me to aid the pack to help me fight this curse." Isolde felt a tremor of fear. To step into his world meant leaving the palace behind, leaving her family and the safety of the known. And yet, a part of her longed to go, to see the forest again, to stand beside the man she had saved. "I cannot," she said finally, her hands tightening around the folds of her gown. "My duty is here. My family, the king." Kalen's gaze darkened, but it was not anger, only the weight of truth. "Duty can wait, Isolde. Life cannot. My pack, they are counting on me. And you saved me when I was at death's door. That cannot be ignored." The tension between them was like a drawn bowstring. She could feel the heat in his presence, the pull of his strength pressing against her own resolve. Yet she resisted, determined to hold her ground. Days passed and Kalen did not leave. He walked the palace gardens, always observing, always near. Rumors spread among the nobles. The Alpha had come, not as an invader, but as a guest. Some feared him, others were fascinated. But every time Isolde met his gaze, her own fears and curiosity collided. One evening, under a sky painted with the first stars, Kalen cornered her in the palace gardens. The fountains sparkled like molten silver, and the scent of roses hung thick in the air. "You will come with me," he said, his voice low, but there was no threat in it, only certainty. "I cannot," she replied again, though her voice faltered. Kalen stepped closer, the shadows of the garden wrapping around him like a cloak. "Look at me, Isolde. See what your choice has done. You did not hesitate to save a life that night. Why hesitate now? Are you afraid?" She turned her gaze away, unwilling to meet the intensity of his eyes. I am afraid. Of what I do not understand." "Then I will show you," he said, his tone softening, almost gentle. "Come with me into the forest, see what I see, feel what my pack feels, and then you may choose." Something in his words, in the promise of that wild unknown, made her heart ache with longing. Yet the thought of leaving everything she knew behind chilled her to the bone. That night, as the palace slept, Isolde lay in her chamber, staring at the token in her hand. Its claw marks seemed to pulse with life, as if reminding her that her destiny had already begun. She could hear Kalen's voice in her mind, calling, commanding, pleading, and she realized that her heart had already answered, even if her mind had not. The next morning, chaos erupted at the palace gates. Rogue wolves, corrupted by the same curse Kalen had spoken of, attacked the outer grounds. Guards shouted, horses panicked, and nobles screamed. Isolde felt her pulse race, not with fear but with recognition. She had seen creatures like these before, in the shadows of the northern forest. Kalen appeared as if summoned by the winds themselves. He moved with a predator's grace, his presence commanding the ground and the air. Wolves fell silent at his approach, their aggression restrained by his mere presence. In moments, he had subdued the attackers, but not without leaving a trail of awe and fear among the palace guards. Isolde watched, heart pounding, as he moved through the chaos. The man she had saved was a force unlike any she had ever known, yet he was alive because of her choices, because of her courage. After the last wolf had fled into the darkness, Kalen turned to her. "Do you understand now?" he asked, amber eyes burning with intensity. "This is my world, Isolde, and it is not safe, not for you, not for anyone who stands in my path." I do," she whispered, her voice trembling, "but I still do not know if I can leave everything behind." Kalen stepped closer, the heat of his presence pressing against her. "Sometimes," he said, "we are not given the luxury of waiting. Sometimes courage means stepping into the unknown, even when fear is all we feel. Her heart ached with longing and fear, a storm of emotion that left her breathless. She wanted to run into his arms, to follow him into the wild unknown, yet the weight of duty held her back. For hours they stood in silence, two souls bound by fate and choice. The wind whispered through the palace gardens, carrying the scent of pine, earth, and something wilder, something untamed. Finally, Kalen reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Tonight," he said, "the choice will no longer be yours alone. The pack waits. The curse waits, and I will wait, but not forever." With that, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving Isolde trembling in the moonlight. Her heart was a storm, her mind a whirlwind. She knew that when dawn came, her life would change forever. As the first rays of light touched the palace, a messenger arrived with news from the northern forest. Signs of Kaelin's pack moving closer to the kingdom, and warnings that the curse's influence was spreading. The message was simple, yet terrifying. The world she had known was ending, and the wild, powerful world Kaelin belonged to was encroaching. That evening, Isolde packed a small satchel, taking only what she could carry. She paused for a moment in her chamber, looking at her reflection in the mirror. The girl who had been ready for the royal ball was gone. In her place stood a young woman prepared to step into the unknown, drawn by duty, fear, and a growing, undeniable bond with the man who had saved her life, and whom she now could not escape. At the edge of the forest, Kaelin waited. His golden eyes met hers, and in that silent moment the weight of their shared destiny pressed upon them. She took a deep breath, feeling the pull of the wild, the pull of him, the pull of a world that would test her courage, her heart, and her very soul. Together they crossed into the shadows of the northern forest, leaving behind the palace, the ball, and the life she had once known. The wind carried their promise forward, and the trees seemed to bend around them, guiding them into a realm of magic, danger, and the first sparks of love and longing. And in the distance, unseen but felt, the shadows stirred. The curse was awakening. The forest of the northern lands was unlike anything Isolde had ever seen. Trees stretched higher than the tallest palace towers, their leaves dark as midnight, rustling softly as if speaking in an ancient tongue. The air smelled of earth, moss, and something wilder, older, alive with power. Every step she took felt both thrilling and terrifying. She had left behind the palace, the ball, and her old life, stepping into Kaelin's world. Kaelin walked beside her, silent but present. His golden eyes glimmered in the moonlight that pierced the dense canopy above. Despite the danger and raw power surrounding him, there was something almost human in the way he glanced at her, as if checking that she could keep up, that she was still safe. "This forest," Isolde whispered, awe in her voice, "it feels alive." "It is alive," Kaelin replied, "and it watches. Every shadow, every rustle, the forest is part of my pack. It knows who belongs and who does not." Isolde's heart raced. She had seen glimpses of danger before in the rogue wolves that had attacked the palace, but here, the forest itself felt like a living being, ancient and unpredictable. And yet, despite the fear, she felt drawn to it, to him, to the mystery that surrounded his life. They came to a clearing where the moonlight poured down like silver water. Kaelin stopped and turned to her. "You must understand the trials ahead," he said. "The curse that haunts my pack is powerful. It cannot be fought with swords alone. It tests the heart, the soul, and the courage of all who wish to help." Isolde nodded, gripping the satchel at her side. "I am ready." Kaelin's gaze softened, though a shadow of worry lingered. "We will face visions, illusions that may try to break us. Fear, doubt, desire, all will be used against us, but together we may overcome." The first trial began almost immediately. Shadows rose from the forest floor, twisting into forms that reflected their deepest fears. For Isolde, it was the palace, burning in flames, her family screaming for her to return. She could feel herself trembling, heart aching, ready to flee. Kalen reached out, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "Focus," he said. "You are stronger than fear. Remember why you came." Taking a deep breath, Isolde closed her eyes and pictured the man she had saved, the pack that depended on him, and the courage that had led her here. The shadows faltered, fading like mist in sunlight. Kalen watched her, pride flickering across his features, quickly masked by the stoicism he always wore. "You are strong," he said softly. "Do not doubt yourself." The trials grew more difficult with each passing day. Visions of Kalen in danger, his pack under attack, illusions of betrayal and heartbreak tested her resolve. Each night, they shared stories of their pasts, their fears, and the truths they had hidden from the world. Kalen's own vulnerabilities began to surface. His pride, his fear of losing those he loved, and the loneliness that came from centuries of command. In the quiet hours when the forest was still, their hands would brush accidentally, and each time a spark ignited, a pull neither could ignore. Words were seldom needed. The silence between them spoke louder than any declaration. Yet they did not allow themselves to fully surrender to the emotions building between them. Duty, honor, and the looming curse kept their hearts in careful balance. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, the forest tested them more than ever. They arrived at the Bloodstone, an ancient altar hidden deep within the woods. It was here that the curse could be confronted, though not without risk. The stone pulsed with a faint red glow, resonating with the pain and suffering of the pack it had haunted for generations. "You must enter alone," Kalen said, his voice heavy with warning. "The curse will try to manipulate your fears. It will twist your heart. Only by confronting it can you help the pack." Isolde nodded, determination clashing with fear. She stepped forward, feeling the power of the stone wash over her. Shadows rose from the ground, forming wraith-like shapes that hissed and moaned, echoing her deepest insecurities. She saw visions of failure, of Kalen dying in her arms, of the pack being destroyed because she had not been strong enough. Her legs shook, but she forced herself to step forward, repeating in her mind the reason she had come. Kalen's presence, just outside the circle of shadows, grounded her. She felt the pull of his strength and the tether of their bond, and slowly she reached the heart of the Bloodstone's power. With a deep, steadying breath, she extended her hands, drawing on the courage and compassion that had guided her life. Light erupted from her palms, pure and unyielding, pushing back the shadows, dissolving the illusions and breaking the first layer of the curse's grip. Kalen stepped forward, helping to stabilize the stone with his own power, his hand brushing hers. Their eyes met, and in that gaze was acknowledgement, gratitude, trust, and a spark of something deeper. The forest exhaled around them as if approving, yet the sense of calm was fleeting. The trials had only just begun. In the following days, Isolde trained with the pack, learning their rituals, their codes, and the subtle ways the forest and its creatures communicated. She discovered that the curse affected not just Kalen, but his descendants and allies. Each member of the pack carried a fragment of the darkness, and every act of courage, trust, or love weakened it. Kalen observed her closely during these days, noting her resilience, her quick thinking, and the way she earned the trust of the wolves. Though he had never allowed himself attachment, he found his thoughts lingering on her smile, the way her eyes lit with determination, the courage that seemed to flow effortlessly from her. Their nights together were quiet but charged. They would sit beneath the stars, sharing their fears and dreams. Isolde learned of Kalen's past, the burden of leadership, the loneliness that came from centuries of command, and the love he had never allowed himself. He, in turn, began to see her not just as a mortal who had saved his life, but as a partner, someone whose presence made his strength feel whole rather than empty. Yet danger remained. One night, as they returned from a patrol, a rival alpha from a neighboring realm appeared, claiming that Isolde was his destined mate. His pack had followed him, and their eyes glimmered with malice. Kalen's protective instincts flared, and his body radiated power that made the trees tremble. "Stay behind me," Kalen commanded, placing himself between Isolde and the rival Alpha. "No harm will come to you." Isolde's heart raced. The man before her was powerful, cruel, and certain of his claim. She felt fear, but also the strength of her bond with Kalen, the courage she had discovered in herself. "I am no one's prize," she said firmly, stepping closer to Kalen, their hands brushing once more. "I choose where my loyalty lies." The rival Alpha snarled, a low, dangerous sound, but Kalen's presence was unyielding. The ground seemed to respond to him, the shadows shifting to shield them. In that tense moment, Isolde realized that their bond was more than mere attraction. It was a force that could shape the outcome of battles, the fate of packs, and the power of curses. The rival Alpha retreated, warning that the claim was not ended, only delayed. He vanished into the night, leaving a shadow of threat that lingered like a storm on the horizon. Kalen turned to Isolde, concern and admiration mingling in his amber eyes. "You are brave," he said softly. "Your courage is what saves not only me, but my pack." She nodded, her chest heaving. "I only do what is right, but I do not know if I am ready for everything that is coming." "You will be," Kalen said, his voice firm yet gentle, "and I will be with you. Whatever trials await, we face them together." The moon rose high above the forest, casting silver light on the pair standing side by side. In the shadows, the pack watched silently, their golden eyes reflecting loyalty, curiosity, and respect. The forest hummed with life, aware of the bond forming between the mortal and the Alpha. As dawn approached, Isolde and Kalen knew the next trial awaited them. Deeper magic, older shadows, and the final confrontation with the curse that threatened the pack's very existence. They would face visions that challenged their hearts, illusions that tested trust, and dangers that required sacrifice. Yet the bond they had forged, born of courage, compassion, and unspoken longing, would carry them through. Hand in hand, they stepped deeper into the forest, ready to face what awaited. The bloodstone pulsed faintly ahead, a beacon of power and peril. Shadows whispered along the path, speaking of past failures, lost loves, and battles yet to come. But together, they were unbroken. And in the distance, beyond the ancient trees and the silver light of dawn, a darker shadow stirred, a rival force, one that would challenge everything they had built and threaten the fragile trust and love growing between them. The northern forest was alive with whispers and shadows as dawn broke over the canopy. Birds cried, leaves shivered, and the wind carried a chill that spoke of trials yet to come. Isolde and Kalen stood at the edge of the bloodstone clearing, hand in hand, feeling the weight of destiny pressing on them. The rival Alpha had vanished, but his threat lingered like a storm waiting to strike. The curse, older than any living soul, pulsed faintly through the forest, reminding them that their work was far from done. Kalen's pack gathered around them, loyal and alert, eyes glowing in the dim light, waiting for the command of their Alpha and the courage of the woman who had come to stand beside him. Kalen turned to Isolde, his golden eyes reflecting both fear and trust. "This is the final trial," he said. "We face the heart of the curse itself. If we fail, the pack will be lost and the darkness will spread beyond these woods." Isolde tightened her grip on his hand. "Then we cannot fail. Not now, not ever." The bloodstone pulsed brighter as they approached. Its red glow illuminated the clearing, casting long shadows that twisted and writhed like living beings. The curse stirred within, taking shape as a shadowed figure, shifting between wolf and wraith, its eyes burning with malice. Kalen stepped forward, his body tense, radiating strength and authority. The ground trembled beneath his feet and the pack's growls echoed in harmony with the forest. The shadow hissed, circling them, testing, taunting. "You will not harm us," Kalen said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Not while I stand." The shadow lunged. Kalen moved with lightning speed, intercepting it, claws and strength clashing against the cursed form. Isolde stepped forward, heart racing, and drew upon the courage and magic that had guided her through the trials. Light shone from her hands, pure and unwavering, striking the shadow and forcing it to recoil. Together, they fought. Kalen's strength and Isolde's courage combined in harmony, each move synchronized as if they were two halves of the same force. The pack joined, their loyalty unwavering, biting and leaping against the darkness, buying precious moments. Yet the shadow was cunning, feeding on fear, doubt, and desire. It shifted, creating illusions of their loved ones in danger, of betrayal, of failure. Isolde's mind reeled at the images, her heart aching with sorrow and worry. Kalen's amber eyes locked onto hers, grounding her, reminding her that courage was stronger than fear. "Do not falter," he whispered, his hand brushing hers, their bond a lifeline. "Together, we are stronger than any darkness." Taking a deep breath, Isolde called upon every lesson, every bit of courage she had gained. She focused not on the fear, but on the love, loyalty, and hope that had guided her since the first night she had saved Kalen. Light burst from her, expanding outward, mingling with Kalen's power, pushing back the shadow, forcing it to retreat. The battle raged for what felt like hours, though time itself seemed suspended in the clearing. The shadow shrieked, twisted, and lashed out, but the unity of Isolde, Kalen, and the pack was unbreakable. Step by step, they drove the curse back to the bloodstone, weakening it with every strike. Finally, with one synchronized effort, Kalen's strength and Isolde's courage struck the heart of the shadow. It dissolved in a burst of red and silver light, scattering into the wind like ash. The bloodstone pulsed one last time and then fell silent. The forest exhaled, calm and still, the curse lifted. Kalen dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. Isolde rushed to his side, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We did it," she said softly, relief and exhaustion mixing in her voice. He looked at her, eyes glowing with admiration and something more, something deeper than either had allowed themselves to name. "No," he said, his voice hoarse but steady. "You did it. You saved us all. We could not have done this without you." Her heart swelled. She corrected him gently. "We did it together." For a moment they allowed themselves to rest, the forest serene around them. The pack circled, their eyes reflecting loyalty, respect, and recognition of the woman who had stood beside their alpha, but peace was short-lived. From the edge of the clearing, movement caught their attention. The rival alpha from the neighboring realm appeared, his eyes full of fury and defeat. He had witnessed the destruction of the curse, but he still sought claim over Isolde. Kalen rose, his body radiating power that made the forest bend to his will. "Leave now," he commanded, voice echoing like thunder. "Your claim ends here. This is no longer a matter of destiny but of respect. You do not have her consent. You do not have my mercy." The rival snarled, a final growl of defiance, then vanished into the shadows, leaving a warning behind, that his claim was not ended, only delayed. Kalen's jaw tightened, but he did not pursue. The danger had passed for now. Isolde stepped closer to him, feeling the weight of everything they had endured. "Will it ever be safe?" she asked quietly. Kalen placed his hand over hers. "In this world, never completely, but with trust, courage, and love, we will face whatever comes." Her heart leapt at the word love, though neither spoke it aloud. The forest seemed to hum around them as if acknowledging their bond, a force stronger than magic, stronger than fear, stronger than curses. The following days were filled with the work of rebuilding. The pack healed, rituals were completed, and the forest regained its balance. Kalen's leadership was tempered now with gratitude and humility, having seen the strength of a mortal who had dared to stand beside him. Isolde learned the ways of the pack, gaining respect and admiration for her courage, intelligence, and compassion. As the sun set one evening, they stood together on a high cliff overlooking the forest, the kingdom of Velthoria visible in the distance. The wind carried scents of pine, earth, and distant flowers, and the sky was painted with pinks and purples. Kalen turned to Isolde, his expression softening. "You have changed everything," he said. "Not just my pack, not just me, but the balance of this land. You were brave when others would have fled. You were kind when others would have turned away. And you have my heart." Isolde felt a warmth she had never known. Her hand reached for his, fingers intertwining. I have never felt so alive," she admitted. "With you I feel stronger, braver, more myself than ever before." Kalen smiled, a rare, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Then stay with me," he said simply. "Not as alpha and mortal, but as partners. Whatever the future brings, we face it together." Tears of relief and joy filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "together." The pack gathered around them, their howls echoing into the night, a song of triumph, loyalty, and unity. The bloodstone, now dormant, reflected the moonlight, silent witness to their courage and love. And for the first time, Isolde felt truly free. The palace, the ball, the expectations, all had faded. What remained was the forest, the pack, Kalen, and the bond that had been forged in fire, shadow, and courage. Yet the wind carried a whisper, soft and distant, reminding them that the world was never without shadows. Somewhere in the north, a stir of darkness hinted at challenges yet to come. But in that moment, standing together beneath the full moon, they knew that whatever arrived, they would face it side by side. Kalen drew her close, amber eyes glimmering. "Whatever comes," he murmured, "we are unbroken." And Isolde, heart full, head resting against his chest, felt the truth of it. They were unbroken. The forest watched in silence, the pack howled in harmony, and the stars above glittered like witnesses to a bond forged in darkness and tempered by courage. The curse had been lifted, yet the legend of their love, bravery, and unity was only beginning. And in the distance, where the shadows lingered, something stirred, a reminder that adventure, danger, and destiny would always find those brave enough to meet it. But together, Kalen and Isolde were ready.